Not yet. What's wrong? Why isn't it working? There we are. Good morning, everybody. We are live and talking to you about some things that are going on in the world. There's a lot going on. You all know what happened today, right? Well, I don't know if it happened because I didn't watch it. And Ashley didn't watch it either. But that is Branson going into outer space for a whopping 90 seconds. A very quick space flight. And I don't know, jot down in the comments if you're watching, if you saw the space flight, if it even happened yet, because I did not watch. So I'd like to welcome Ashley. She's been on the podcast before, and she is joining us today to help co-host the live stream. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, good. It's good to have you. So you're a natural at this kind of stuff. So I figured you were the perfect person to ask because Adam has not been available lately. So we got to get back on the live stuff here. We haven't been doing it for a while. So, folks, gosh, there's a lot going on in the world as always. But I first want to tell you, and we will talk about real estate. We'll talk about space. We'll talk about how space affects real estate. That's the topic of the day, is space related. But first, I want to talk to you about my very own personal experience with our absolute scam of a medical industry and scam of a pharmaceutical industry. So I have been just suffering badly. And I am suffering today as well. Why am I suffering? Well, I am suffering because I've had a really bad ear infection. It's the only the second time in my life I've experienced this. And the last time was when I was in China about 2 or 3 years ago. I had an ear infection there. And, I think the earbuds and the AirPods and wearing an earplug, if you travel, you tend to wear earplugs. I certainly do to sleep and to go on airplanes and so forth, or you're wearing earbuds. And I think that really is part of it. But so I went to the walk-in clinic on Friday evening after I just couldn't bear the suffering anymore. And they prescribed 2 things. Now, I haven't taken a prescription drug in probably 10 years, but they prescribed some eardrops and an antibiotic pill. So I run over to the pharmacy after visiting the walk-in clinic, just dying in terrible pain, thinking I got to fill this prescription right away and start on the road to recovery. And so they say the pills, the antibiotic pill, is only like $6 and change. Oh, that's fine. But the eardrops are $260 for a little thing of eardrops. And I'm thinking, this is a complete freaking ripoff. And then I said, well, to the pharmacist, hey, Stephanie, is there a generic brand? And she said, yes, the generic brand is $230. And I've got the money, but I just do not like being hosed, even if I'm in pain.
Of course not. No, that's terrible. That's
yeah.
Really.
So I go back to the urgent care, and they are now closed. Thank you very much. And so they couldn't change my prescription. But I called the next morning, and I talked to them. They changed the prescription to another eardrop, which was only $30. But listen to this. She said, when I called she said, you should join GoodRx. And I'd never heard of this before. GoodRx is a website where you can go and you can get discounts on prescriptions. Okay, that sounds good. So I go to GoodRx, I type in the name of the new eardrops, and it's called Polymoxin B, I guess. And so I type this in, and they say it'll be $33. I'm thinking, well, that's fine. So I print this out. I walk into the pharmacy. Same girl is there. I say, hey, Stephanie, I got an updated prescription. She says, good. I thought that was a ripoff too last night. And it's $33. And she says, well, this one is covered by your insurance, and it's only $25. So here's how effed up our medical system is. It's a total scam.
Totally.
And I said, well, okay, how much does my insurance pay for that prescription? I mean, if I'm paying 25, how much do they pay? I want to know, this is the problem with our system. And Ashley, I'm sure you're going to agree with this. The problem with our system is that nobody is at stake. When I'm taking my dog to the vet tomorrow. When I take her to the vet, I pay for it. So I'm conscious of the cost of things. But when we go to the doctor, we just want every test we can get. We'll take every prescription we can get. Well, I'm not a fan of prescriptions, but whatever. If you have to have them, then you got to do it. And so we don't care what the cost is to the insurance company. Who cares? It's not my cost. Mm-hmm. But I want to know, because I want to know how messed up the system is. And, in the overall scheme of things, just to be a good citizen, I don't want my insurance company to get hosed either. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, I care a lot less about their money than my own, obviously. But even then. So Stephanie, the pharmacist, says, well, the insurance company pays $89. And you only pay 25. So it's like 100 and something, right? For the whole thing. And I said, well, I've got a coupon here for $33. Well, there it is, $33. So can I use this coupon? So my insurance company only pays $33 and I'll pay $8. Mm-hmm. And she says, no, you can't do that. So basically by me wanting to save $8, my insurance company ends up paying $89. So I can pay $25. How messed up is this system? It is just a total stupid scam. And Trump, to his credit, whether you love him or hate him, and I don't think we're going to get too many people on here, Ashley, with Trump derangement syndrome, but there's always a few out there. He was trying to fix this, where he made all the hospitals post their prices on their websites. I don't know what happened to that since sleepy Joe Biden took over, but it's interesting.
This is the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems facing the United States, having lived overseas in Italy. I mean, their system isn't perfect either, but certainly you can sleep at night, knowing that you're, especially as a young person, maybe between jobs or hasn't settled into a career yet where insurance is going to be provided by the company, at least you're going to be covered and you're not going to have outrageous out-of-pocket expenses.
So in Italy, was it totally socialized? I don't think it's totally socialized there, is it?
I mean, for the most part, they have a much higher tax rate but in terms of income tax and property tax and such. But yes, it's all subsidized. And the problem, though, however, it's not a perfect system. The problem is you will go to the government hospitals and clinics and things, and there'll be a long line. You won't be able to get in. And so you have urgency. So what do? You just go to a private doctor and pay out of pocket. So
I'm really glad you said that, because that is exactly the problem with socialized healthcare, which I certainly do not endorse, is that people in Canada, in England, and probably Italy too, they just basically die waiting in line.
Yes.
And
there's a lot of weight here. Yeah.
It's a good way to cut your cost if you're the government. If you can just make people wait long enough that they just die before they need the treatment. Or the situation resolves, right? Usually an ear infection will just go away, right? Your body will fix it. But if it gets really bad, maybe it doesn't resolve.
Right, you'll do anything to solve it. So it's excruciating, certainly. Yeah.
So, but as an American, you were eligible for the Italian socialized healthcare?
Yes, because I gained residency there because I was living there, enrolled in the conservatory. And so I had, I think I paid €75 a year. And I was enrolled into their healthcare system. I had a special card that they gave to me that if you needed something, you would go and you would present the card. And I didn't really have any issues, but the few times I did go for various things, I didn't pay for anything.
Yeah, that's well, I was going to say that's great, but I don't know if it's great.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the care in general, other than waiting in line? How did it feel versus American care?
It was excellent. No complaints about the care. Absolutely.
modern equipment. And
yes. Oh, yes. Italy has some of the best universities in terms of medical schools in the world. And what's happening now, especially with Italy, is the young people are getting their degrees in Italy because they have excellent universities, excellent teaching, and then they're going abroad to live. So they're calling it the escaping of the brains, la fuga dei cervelli. So the brains are escaping because
right.
there's no jobs, and it's difficult, and they don't get paid enough. They're getting paid 1,400 euros a month. These are med students, these are grad students. It's like, come on, it's not enough. It's not enough to live on.
But are those Italians that are getting their degrees in Italy and then leaving?
Yes. Yes.
So it's suffering a brain drain because the economic system is so anemic and corrupt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they built the Berlin Wall, to stop
Mm-hmm.
the brain drain. And as I predicted about 12, 13 years ago, I predicted that California would build an economic Berlin Wall. That's what I named it. And I recently shared an old Facebook memory where I posted about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they are trying to do. Well, they've already done it in many ways. And it's harder to do it as a state, right? When people are just fleeing to other states like Texas, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, et cetera. But yeah, this phenomenon happens throughout history, throughout the world. Exactly what Ashley's saying is the brain drain, when people, they'll use the system they've got and then they'll leave, right? And that just happens all the time. People do that with employers, marriages, countries, states. it's a brain drain, right? They get what they want and then they bail out. Good stuff. Ashley, can you see all the questions and comments, by the way?
Let me see.
Just want to make sure you can.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, great. So feel free to interrupt us with any of those, and we can bring them into the discussion here. But you have a few questions and thoughts that you wanted to discuss today, and I've got a few visuals I want to share, and we've got a whole bunch of people watching. By the way, everybody watching, please post a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And also let us know if you saw Branson go into space. I don't even know if it happened because I didn't watch it, but it was right before this live stream. And what happened?
Do you know what else is happening today at 9 p.m. European time? England versus Italy, soccer finals.
Oh, soccer. You mean football?
Oh yeah, football.
Football, right?
Right. Yeah.
Are you into that? I didn't know you. You never told me you were into that.
I like it. I don't really follow it, but I do enjoy a good match. I mean, I played soccer.
Folks, listen to Ashley. She just called it the right thing. She said a good match. It's not a game, it's a match.
Match.
just like polo. That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Watch live as Richard Branson launches into space. Did it happen? Did the mission all happen, folks? You got to tell us. We are uninformed here, and we don't want to be low information people. Did anybody see that? Did it happen? Is it done? And look at what Brady says here in the comments. Brain drain seems like a good precursor to Atlas Shrugged. That's exactly what happened with Gulch and Atlas Shrugged. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay, Ashley, take it away. What do you got?
All right. I have a question. This pertains to everybody, but certainly for people in my kind of age bracket. Do you think we're going to turn into a nation of renters, especially for the younger professionals who can no longer afford a starter home despite lower interest rates?
Yeah, that's a good question that's been on a lot of people's mind. And I think, well, when you say nation of renters, first we have to define, what does that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that the home ownership rate dips below 60%, for example? It peaked out at about 69% during the Bush era, Bush number 2, of the ownership society that he was promoting, which I have said many times. I thought that was a bad idea. I don't, it seems on the surface, it seems good. Owners are at stake, right? They care more. They build roots in a community. If they're homeowners, they tend not to move. But counterintuitively, as we've talked about many times on the Creating Wealth podcast, high homeownership rates lead to anemic communities in terms of job growth, innovation, because the best thing you can have on a resume is mobility and being able to move to where the jobs are. So renting does not have the stigma it used to have, and I don't think it's that bad a deal. However, that doesn't mean, and make sure you catch this, folks, that doesn't mean that you should not be a real estate investor, because real estate investing is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. It's the most tax-favored asset class in America. It's the most debt-favored asset class in America. And I mean debt in a good way. I always say debt is my favorite four-letter word. I do think the homeownership rate will decline. And I think the population of renters will increase. It's already happening. And I don't necessarily think that's bad in and of itself. I do have concerns, though, about these big institutional landlords buying up the country, the same way I have concerns about the scumbag and, I think, criminal Bill Gates buying up all the farmland. But that's kind of a different part of that subject.
Right. And to go along with that, Robert Joliffe asked, the banks will change the game. Banks are buying houses with money from nothing and then renting to you. So will the banks loan you or become the landlord themselves?
I wonder if he means, and maybe make another comment if you would. You said that was Robert, right? Robert, make another comment about that. Do you mean through foreclosure the banks would become the landlords, or what are you saying? And by the way, it is so difficult to talk when you cannot hear yourself talking. And hey, I love to hear myself talk, but it is just weird. Do I sound different? I think I sound.
No, you don't. You don't sound different.
It's very unusual.
Yeah.
But I don't think the banks are going to be doing any big foreclosures on these big institutional landlords anytime soon. And we're talking about, Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, all these giant landlords that own tens of thousands of properties and probably soon hundreds of thousands of properties. We're going to see them continue, and we're going to see more institutional landlords. But the real question, I think, that many people probably want to know is, what does this mean to mom and pop real estate investors like all of us? Well, I think it's actually quite good, because those institutional landlords, they do a much better job of optimizing their rental rates. They use software. And if you go to and you talk to, or or just, if you talk to any apartment leasing agent, just ask them what software they use for their rental management. And they use software to optimize rental prices of all their units. They're doing the same thing with their single family homes, and they do a much better job than mom and pop landlords of pushing rents up to where they should be. So what that means for all of us is that we are going to see, well, we're already seeing it, but beyond what we're already seeing significantly, we're going to see much, much higher rents. Do you remember that campaign, Ashley? I doubt you caught this one because it was years ago, but and you weren't paying attention to real estate back then. But that campaign, the rent is too damn high. Someone sent me a T-shirt. It was kind of funny, but yeah.
It could come back. It could come back. Yeah. All right. So the economic ninja says the real problem is credit retraction by the banks. Banks are becoming increasingly concerned over whether people will be able to repay debt.
Yeah, it really depends what type of debt. I think you really need to segment that into what type of debt. Many have talked about an auto loan bubble. And how there's going to be a lot of auto repossessions, but I don't know. I I can't hear. I can't talk right. A lot of auto repossessions. But if you look at what's going on right now, there is a huge car shortage. In fact, I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday who said that he was recently in a wedding and had to rent a car for 2 days in I think somewhere in the Northeast. I don't know if it was New York State or what, but $700 for a 2-day car rental.
Jeez.
Insane. And I said, for that, you could have just purchased an old clunker, right? which is funny.
Yeah.
And by the way, probably everybody watching or listening has heard this, but in various areas, especially Hawaii, the rental cars have become so expensive that people are just renting U-Haul trucks and driving them around like rental cars. They don't need a truck. They just need transportation. So yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But if you want to buy a car, like when I purchased a car last November, I couldn't believe how bad the selection was. Mm-hmm. I did not get the car I wanted. I did not get the color combination I wanted or anything. You just had to kind of take what you can get. But I was so sick of my BMW. I just think BMWs are highly overrated. I've owned many of them. I just wanted a new car and I was just done.
Don't say that to the Germans.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about the German cars. They used to be really special because the idea of performance and handling, they really kind of originated that, maybe along with the Italians, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of cars that have good performance nowadays. That they don't have to be German cars anymore. So that monopoly on performance is no longer a monopoly by Germans. So BMW and Mercedes, they don't have what they used to have. It's not so special. And but at least BMW, they still have that sort of snotty anti-service attitude, and I don't like it. I'm not going to buy another BMW. Goodbye, BMW. I'm not going to be seeing you anytime soon.
Auf Wiedersehen, yeah.
Auf Wiedersehen, yeah. Exactly.
So Tarek asks, do you think California will have any success trying to collect 10 years of back taxes?
Oh, is that on the wealth tax issue? That must be the wealth tax issue you're talking about. Well, I don't know. Who knows? And so, Ashley, what Tarek is referring to, I think, is this proposed wealth tax. And when these things get out there, they're going to happen. Okay, when this becomes a serious discussion, it's inevitable. It may not happen right away, but it's going to happen. And look at what they're doing with the mileage tax now. Mm-hmm. They baited all of these people into getting electric cars, and they thought all the electric car buyers thought, they could save money on their electric cars, and they'd get this cash back incentive from the state, $7,000. I got it when I bought my first Tesla because I was California resident at the time, and they got all this, and then and now they want to add a mileage tax. See, normally you pay for the mileage in your gasoline purchase because you pay a gas tax, but now they want to just tax you based on mileage in general, regardless of how you travel those miles in your car. So it's ridiculous. So the wealth tax, California basically wants to say, look, if you developed your business or yourself in our state, we're going to tax you on that. If you were here in the last 10 years, and I'm glad I left in 2011, by the way, you're going to be basically paying California back taxes. In fact, they're attaching strings to you and trying to do it for a decade. And they even want to go back further than that. They want to say things like, I'll give you an example. My own mother, right? She went to, which was at the time one of the best universities in the country, Berkeley. Okay, Berkeley, California, with the nut job lefties, right? And they want to say, if you got your college education in California, which one of the reasons California grew so well in the 60s, the 70s, and even the 80s, is great universities. And if you got your university here, well, that increased your income over your career.
Mhm.
You owe us for that.
Mhm.
I mean,
We're going to take credit for your success, and then you're going to pay us even more for that.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. So, well, how much success will they have? I don't know, but I can tell you this: the FTB, California's Franchise Tax Board, their state taxing agency, is without a doubt the most aggressive and vicious taxing agency in the country. Now, Joe Biden is increasing the power of the IRS scarily, but we'll see how that goes. But so far, the FTB is pretty tough, pretty bad.
Yeah. So where are we? And this is one of my questions too. Where are we with the lumber shortage situation and the supply chain saga? What's going on there? Where are we today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, lumber prices are still, I believe, over, and I'm not looking at anything for this. This just, in anecdotal, but I believe they're over double what they were pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
Intentional mispronunciation, by the way, pandemic. But they have come down quite a bit from their peak, and it's still very expensive. I mean, lumber is extremely expensive still, but we'll see. So it's not as bad as it used to be, but a lot worse than it was at the beginning of COVID 1984.
Certainly. So All Me asks, if we have a rental in an LLC, will the bank refinance us?
So if you have a rental property that is owned by your LLC, will you be able to get a refinance? Well, if it's a traditional or conventional Fannie Mae Freddie Mac loan, otherwise known as an agency loan, those are the two biggest buyers of mortgages on the secondary market, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. You will not be able to do it inside of an LLC. So what many people do is they take the property out of the LLC. In other words, they deed it back to themselves as an individual, and then they refinance it and then put it back into an LLC. And technically, many have been concerned that by transferring title back into an LLC, they would be able to trigger the due on sale clause and call the loan due and force you to pay it off. I have never heard of that actually happening, but technically and legally, they might be able to do it. And what this means, just a little history here. I believe it was, I don't know, I can't remember now, but maybe back in like 1978 or something like that. The Supreme Court of the United States upheld what's called the due on sale clause, meaning that when a mortgage is transferred, the mortgage balance becomes due upon the sale. So you can't transfer a mortgage to a new buyer and allow the buyer to assume that mortgage after the Supreme Court upheld the due on sale clause. And so that changed the real estate market quite a bit because it forced people that wanted to buy that home to either pay cash or take out a new loan. They could no longer assume the loan from the seller. And the Supreme Court upheld that because the banks were getting a lot of people that were getting these extremely low interest rate loans that they could assume in a market in, say, the early 80s or the late 70s where the interest rates were much higher. And so it was really difficult on the lenders. So that's basically what happened. So here's the other part about the LLC question. And by the way, I have to make the disclaimer. Neither Ashley nor I are lawyers. We're not qualified to give legal advice. We're not qualified to give tax advice. We are just chatting here, folks. And, I can tell you what I've heard and things from my own experience, of course, and I've got tons of experience. But always check this stuff with the appropriate professional. So if the LLC is a single member LLC, which most real estate investors, that's what they have, they are the member. So, Ashley would be the only member of an LLC that she might set up to buy a property. And it makes it sort of considered a bit of a transparent entity. And so it would be more difficult for a lender to make the case that they're calling a loan due when it's a single member LLC. But if it's a multi-member LLC, saying it's like a syndication where you have a bunch of investors in that, and previously it was just you, they would have a very good case, in my opinion, for calling the due on sale clause. But again, for single member LLC, I've never heard of that happening. Not to say it hasn't happened. I don't know. I've just never heard of it.
All right. Another question about refinancing from Jerome Tan. Hello, Jason. For refi till you die, do you refi every year or wait for a certain amount of year to pull out equity? What if you keep refinancing and it doesn't produce cash flow anymore? Or is that a sign that I shouldn't refi till I get some positive cash flow on top?
Well, certainly, first of all, my refi till you die plan is the most efficient way to extract wealth from your income properties. Mm-hmm. And if you want to know more about refi till you die, check the YouTube channel, check the Creating Wealth podcast. There's a lot more on it. And if you want to find those specific episodes, just go to jasonhartman.com. Look at the search bar in the upper right and just type in refi till ya die. Okay, that's the way it's spelled, refi till ya, Y-A, die. And you can learn more about it. But the two examples that I show are a 7-year plan and a 12-year plan. Mm-hmm. Using the rule of 72s at 6% appreciation as the assumption. The property will double in price every 12 years. So that's why I use the 12-year example. In 7 years, it will increase by 50%. And so there's no specific time frame in which you want to do the refi till you die. You just want to do it when it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so how do you know when it makes sense? Well, number one, and this is going to sound counterintuitive to some people, but it makes sense when you've got too much equity in your properties. Remember what I have taught you folks. Equity is not necessarily good. I know that flies in the face of many things many people have been taught because they're playing by this old game plan, the pre-1971 game plan 50 years ago when Nixon took us off the gold standard. That was the plan. The plan was to pay down your mortgages, pay them off, have equity. Great. No longer. That has not been the game plan in 5 decades. Mm-hmm. So refi, strip the equity out of your properties. But of course, it depends on a lot of market factors. How much equity do you have in the properties? What are the interest rates at the time? Maybe selling the properties and doing a 1031 exchange, so long as our idiot President Biden doesn't attack that. Which he's already making a lot of noise about attacking the 1031 tax deferred exchange. That might be better. So there are a lot of things to consider. And please check in with our investment counselors at least once a year and have them do a free portfolio makeover for you. I designed this portfolio makeover to help you always optimize your portfolio. You know, if you're investing in stocks, for example, one of the things your financial advisor will tell you is to, or ask you, do you want to rebalance your portfolio every year, right? Do you want to rebalance it? And what does that mean? It gets out of balance because maybe you had one stock that went up more than another stock. And if you want to keep those ratios of all those stocks or sectors or funds the same, you need to rebalance your portfolio to keep them the same. But it would be stupid to just say that you want to rebalance your portfolio and not think about it. You have to check in and think about, well, what's going on in the world? What's going on with this company? And the same thing is true of refi till you die. And that's why our team of investment counselors is here for you. It's free. Take advantage of it. Just reach out through jasonhartman.com, or better yet, and I haven't mentioned this, but scrolling across the bottom of your screen, you've got an offer for a free report or a free mini book called Pandemic Investing, and you can get that at pandemicinvesting.com. So take advantage of that, pandemicinvesting.com, and that'll get you into our database and help our investment counselors keep in touch with you with the latest and greatest information.
Mark Anthony the Fifth asks.
I know Mark. He's one of our clients. Great guy.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. He's probably in the Philippines right now.
He says, give the bank the liability. Borrowers will win in this economy. What will interest rates look like, though, once I refi in 7 or 12 years?
That's a great question, and nobody knows the answers to that. If you've been listening to my Creating Wealth podcast for the last 15 or 16 years, because I've been podcasting for a long time, got almost 2,000 episodes out now, and you have heard me make very bad interest rate predictions. That is one thing I've been terribly wrong about.
You win some, you lose some.
My interest rate predictions suck. But I've been very good about a lot of other predictions and made a lot of money for myself and our listeners.
But that's a good point, though. I mean,
yeah,
being so unpredictable, what is a strategy that you can take that's going to work regardless of where it goes?
In all seriousness, it's a great question. Here's the thing we all have to remember about economics, macroeconomics, and this applies to your interest rate question completely. Whenever something happens, I mean, think about the law of cause and effect. Okay, the law of cause and effect says that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that is the law of the universe. It's one of these immutable laws. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so in the world of economics, there is always an equalizing, or maybe not equalizing, that's not the right word, but a mitigating factor. Mm-hmm. So, for example, with Mark Anthony's question, if interest rates go up and then you're thinking, okay, I want to refinance and I want to engage in Jason's plan of equity stripping. Well, if rates go up, think about what happens to the housing market. Generally, that causes prices to soften, and all of the people in the renter pool can no longer afford to buy. So as long as the population doesn't decline, if the population keeps increasing, and then there's obviously a limited supply of housing, it will push rents upward. And that's the compensating factor for the higher interest rates. But here's the problem. There's always a lag time between all of these equal and opposite reactions, right? The cause and effect, and many of you, I'm sure, have felt the same way I do, that you look at your own life and maybe you dealt with a bad, evil person. I've certainly come across my share of them. And you're thinking, when is the law of cause and effect going to apply to them? They are out there doing unethical, sleazy things. They're ripping people off. And, we've all heard what comes around goes around. Karma, right? When are they going to be accountable? When are the chickens going to come home to roost, as the saying goes? Sometimes it takes a while. On the Sunday religious perspective, God's delays are not God's denials. Okay. So there's a lag time between these things, and that can work for you or against you. So maybe there is a time when interest rates are pretty desirable and you want to refinance, but maybe the rents are soft, but you can tell because you're listening to my show, you're listening to these live streams, you're watching the videos, you're following the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index. So you have a prediction, a feel of where the market is going, right? Like Wayne Gretzky says, skate to where the puck is going.
Right.
And you'll make decisions based on that. We don't know. Nobody knows. Interest rates are one of the hardest things to predict of all. But if you want probably the best predictor on interest rates, it's a newsletter called Grant's Interest Rate Observer. It's an expensive newsletter. You can probably, I'm sure, get some of it for free on their website, Grant's Interest Rate Observer. Type that in, and for whatever it's worth, there's another tool for you.
Got a nice comment from JR. In 10 years, people will look back with envy at our 3% mortgages. Don't set yourself up for regret. Listen to Jason and George Gammon.
Yep. Good stuff. I think you're right. People will regret not stocking up on these incredibly cheap mortgages. So stock up. Well, money is on sale because it is. Money is on sale. It's actually not on sale. It's free. Actually, they're paying you to take it. In real terms, interest rates are negative.
Right. Matthew Mason's question. I've been running different worst case scenarios before going all in. Can you imagine a scenario where linear markets stop appreciating or lose value for several years and rent falls?
Well, that's already happened. I don't need to imagine it. I mean, linear markets and cyclical markets and hybrid markets all lost value during the Great Recession. It's just that the linear markets suffered less. And one of the things we've all got to remember is that everything in life is about comparison. Look, before I got this ear infection, I could hear. and it's really tragic not to hear. And so now I keep making comparisons to how I remember it on Wednesday, right? And everything is about comparison. So in economics, you don't have to necessarily achieve the results you want to achieve. But what you do have to do is you have to beat other people in the race. It is a race. It is a comparison game. If there is an absolute economic collapse and everybody's net worth decreases by 90%, okay? Say, someone who's worth $1 million today is only worth $100,000, and someone who's worth $10,000 today is only worth $1,000. That would be a catastrophe, right? 90% decrease in everybody's net worth. But what if your net worth only decreases by 70%? Well, you're still ahead. It's like that old story about the two hikers in the woods, and they see a bear running toward them. And the one hiker stops to tighten his shoelaces. And his friend says, "Hey, man, what are you doing? Don't stop. We got to go. This bear is coming at us." And he says, "What are you doing? You can't outrun a bear." And he says, "I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." Right? This, whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. Okay. Because everything else, if everybody in that example, if everybody's net worth decreased by 90%, guess what would happen? The market would adjust. In a free market, all the prices of everything would adjust. And they would be a lot cheaper. And if everything got cheaper and your net worth did not decrease as much as everybody else's, you would be ahead of the game because everything around you would be less expensive.
Yeah. What about, maybe you know more about this than I do. When, for example, a lot of the European countries adopted the euro. And so basically if they had, the example of the Italians, if someone had 1 million lira in their bank account, when they went over to euros, it was basically halved, and people really struggled for a long time, and some of them haven't even recovered because that market didn't adjust accordingly. And the prices of everything stayed the same, but their net worth and their wealth was just completely cut in half by the adoption of the euro.
Did that happen when you lived in Italy?
No, that was way before. That was, I think that was late 90s, even maybe early 2000s. I'm not sure.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So that is a really interesting question. And this is why the EU is not going to work. The whole thing is just massively imbalanced. There are definitely some good things about it. And by the way, I see the question about the HCI. I want to get to some of that today. So, but that's a great question. And by the way, everybody watching, Ashley is one of the few people I know who has been to more countries than I have. You're at 110 countries on your
110, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm only at 87. So,
and I've lived in 4. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
4 countries. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. That's amazing. So when I was in Romania and Hungary and where else did I go on that trip? I can't think of that trip, but I remember I went to Romania and Bulgaria and a few other countries on an Eastern European tour, and this was in maybe 2006, something like that. And I went there because they were just becoming members of the European Union. And I remember talking to a lot of people there about what will happen if the EU is adopted. And so you take a country like Italy in Ashley's example, and I suppose what happened when the EU, and I'm not a historian of this, I haven't really studied it much, but I can pretty much guess what happened, right? The EU basically, when they introduced the euro, they, I'm sure, evaluated the economic output of all these different countries. And Italy has not been a very successful country. Okay. It's frankly on the verge of collapse. So is Spain and Portugal. And, these countries are in trouble. Okay. And obviously Greece. I don't have to mention that one. They call these the pigs. Okay. The pig countries by the initials. And so they decided what will be the exchange value of the lira to the new euro. And Italy probably got penalized quite a bit because their economy's for so long been such a disaster, right? And so they got a really bad deal on that exchange. However, I bet the complete opposite happened with a country like Germany that's been a very successful economy. And so that's what happened. But one of the other things I wanted to point out about that's interesting is when I was on that trip in Romania, Bulgaria, a few other countries, I can't think of which ones now. When I was talking to people there about what would happen or what will happen when the euro comes in, will it cause inflation or deflation in that particular country's economy? And all of them pretty much said this same idea. They said that what happens, all the merchants get really panicky. And so they tend to just round everything off. And that sounds like something that's very plausible with human nature. They just round everything off. And so if their price in whatever their currency unit is, this thing is 1.2, right? They're going to make it 2 of those units. They're going to round up. And so it's just naturally inflationary when the new currency is introduced. And I thought that was very interesting and very plausible. It probably did happen. Well, all the people I met on that trip told me that did happen in the countries that adopted the EU. But Ashley, that's really kind of tragic. And that people, they still haven't recovered from the switch in the currencies. Yeah. But here's another thing about that. I'm really glad you brought that up. If those people, instead of denominating their wealth in their currency, had owned hard assets instead, those assets wouldn't have been revalued. That would have been an insurance policy against that destruction of the lira in your example. What if they had, instead of having their money in an Italian bank denominated in lira, what if they had their money in gold or real estate or some other commodity that the whole human race needs? What if they had it in copper or coffee beans or whatever? Those things didn't get revalued when that happened because they were traded globally. They weren't attached to any one currency. So that's the protection. That is the protection everybody needs. By the way, listeners, I'm looking at your comments and I am really quite bummed out. No one is saying I'm hot or gorgeous or anything like that. Ashley, this is just not fair. I want equal rights, okay?
Come on, make him feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, folks. We need a little sucking up here.
So that's a perfect segue into the next part. Does the US dollar have any real value right now compared to what?
Well, compared to what is always the question. Good question. Yes, the U.S. dollar has a lot of value, and those who dismiss it are absolutely just stupid. They dismiss it and say it's not backed by anything, and that's just so foolish. It is backed by aircraft carriers and standing armies, the biggest armies the human race has ever known. So the U.S. dollar is most definitely backed by quite a few things. Okay. The full faith and credit of the U.S. government, but I don't want to go into that one. It's really backed by the military. That's what it's backed by.
Mm-hmm. All right. So where can we find the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index, and what is it?
All right. Well, Ashley, why don't you tell them what it is for a moment, and I'm going to bring up a few slides while you're doing that. You are an expert on this.
I guess you could. I wouldn't call it an expert, but
you've been doing some good stuff on it.
So, well, to put it in easy terms, it's if you want to value something, you can give it a price, but that doesn't make any sense unless you compare it to other things and as well historically to see what has happened in the past and where we are now. And so it is a comparison index to see how real estate prices have changed over the years, how to measure the price as compared to other commodities. So you can answer the question, is it cheap or is it expensive?
Yeah, very good. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me add this screen here. Okay, so the question is compared to what? This is the question of life, folks. When you go out into the marketplace, you are constantly comparing things. When you are dating and mating, you are comparing things. Comparison is what we do. We are comparison beings. Human beings are comparison beings. The only way we really know anything is by comparing it to something else. That is just the question of life. Compared to what? And that's what the HCI, our new index, the Hartman Comparison Index, does. It helps you compare real estate to other things. And I think it is one of the best ways to value real estate. And really, fundamentally, it is asking the question, is it cheap or is it expensive? That's what we need to know where real estate is going. If it's expensive, then the likelihood is, there's an old saying in economics, the cure for high prices is high prices. If it's expensive, meaning that the market will adjust those prices down. The marketplace has its own wisdom, and this is the beauty of capitalism. And if it's cheap, the cure for low prices is low prices. So if it's cheap, the marketplace will adjust that by adjusting the prices up as people trade in the marketplace. By the way, we've got a lot of people listening and watching. Please give us a like. We would really appreciate hitting that like button. Ashley, ask them to hit the like button.
If you like us.
They love us.
Please, yes.
Yeah, hit the like button, folks. Come on.
Ralph Martinez's mother thinks you are handsome, so that's nice. Yep. Thank you, Ralph.
Oh, and bashful.
Well, what really kind of what sparked you to develop this index, and where was the light bulb moment when you thought this is something we need right now?
I think I've really been talking in this way for a long time, but I never really thought there should be an index about it until recently. But I've always been comparing things, and that really came out of my discovery many years ago that led to the Hartman Risk Evaluator, which is a way that you can substantially reduce risk when buying properties. And if you want to know more about that, just go on to the YouTube channel, type in Hartman Risk Evaluator, or go to jasonhartman.com and type in Hartman Risk Evaluator and listen to those podcast episodes or watch the videos that explain that. And I do that because basically I look at a house as a series of commodities, packaged commodities. And that is, what we really need to look at to understand the value. We need to look at the ingredients. Look, if we're Ashley, you like to cook, and you're a great cook, by the way. So, if you want to bake a cake, and you go to the grocery store, you buy all the ingredients to bake the cake. And say you were in the business of selling cakes, well, you would have to price the cake higher than the cost of all the ingredients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there's no profit. There's no incentive for you to bake and sell cakes. And so the same thing is true of real estate developers. When they build a house, they have to have a profit margin, quite obviously. And so if you value each component commodity in the house, the concrete, the labor, the petroleum products, the copper wire in the wall, obviously the lumber, you asked about that earlier, the steel, the glass, all of these items, you can arrive at the intrinsic value of the house, and it will give you a mechanism to know what the land is being valued at. Because if the house is $100,000, just for round figures, and all of those ingredients, including the labor, the cost of production, add up to $80,000, then just by deduction, you know that the value of the land is $20,000. And this can really help you avoid the mistake of making a bad investment or overpaying on a property, the Hartman Risk Evaluator. And so really, I guess the Hartman Comparison Index grew out of that. I think that's really what made me think of it. So if we look at some other indexes out there, and I'll just quickly go through this, very common one is the HPI, the FHFA's Housing Price Index, okay? And I think this index is flawed. The Case-Shiller Index, I think, is deeply flawed, yet somehow famous and quoted all the time. Robert Shiller, the economist, won a Nobel Prize, but hey, so did Obama. So I don't know how much credibility that prize has anymore, but the Case-Shiller Index is cited like crazy, and it is so flawed. I just can't believe it is so famous. I think really the best index before the HCI is this one, the Housing Affordability Index. I really quite like this index. I've liked it for many, many years, probably 25 years. And this index basically takes and judges the median house payment, the median mortgage payment against the median income. And they decide how affordable is housing. But here are a couple of flaws of this index. It's a pretty good index. I like this one. But a couple of the flaws are that it doesn't account for foreign money. So, for example, if you are looking at a real estate market where there's a lot of foreign investment in that market, for example, if you're where I used to be in Newport Beach or Irvine, California, back when I was in traditional real estate in the old days, and you've got a bunch of Chinese buyers, a bunch of Chinese money flowing into that market like crazy. It won't help you to know what the median income of the people living in that market are, because all that foreign money will totally distort this index. And the same is true of retirees who aren't earning an income, but might be very wealthy at the same time and have a lot of money to buy properties. So there are some flaws with the Housing Affordability Index, but those would, I'd say, be the two main flaws. Otherwise, this index is quite good. I like this index. Okay. My favorite, though, is the Hartman Comparison Index. My own index. Imagine that. It's my favorite, right? So we're not going to go through all of this because we don't have much time left. But, just let's take gold as a comparison. I mean, gold has been considered money for 5,000 years. For 5,000 years. In fact, there's an old saying that 5,000 years ago, an ounce of gold would buy you a toga and a pair of sandals. And today, that same ounce of gold will buy you a man's suit and a pair of shoes. So the value, I mean, that's kind of a funny saying, right? But the value is kind of consistent, right? And so gold, even though I'm not a gold bug, and I don't think gold is a very good investment, it is insurance, but not an investment. There's a big difference between those two. Gold is a measuring stick, and it needs respect as a measuring stick. So if we look at gold as a measuring stick, let's go back to 1970. By the way, Ashley, we were only going back to the year 2000 before. We took the index back further. So it's more valuable the further we go back, because those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You got to have a sense of history, folks. So back in 1970, when we were still on the gold standard, before Nixon took us off, gold was only $35 an ounce. And it took, and by the way, look where my mouse is on the screen, okay? You see my mouse, I make the cursor really, well, it doesn't look as large on that screen. That's funny. But 646 ounces of gold to buy the median price house of $22,600. Fast forward to the year 2000, median house price is now $173,000. I'm rounding, obviously. Gold is $283 an ounce, and it'll take you 610 ounces of gold to buy that median price house.
So less, yeah.
So think about that. 30 years have passed. We went from 1970 to the year 2000, and everybody in the year 2000 is crowing about how expensive houses are. I'm sure they were, saying it's just so expensive compared to back in 1970. You know how you talk to these old people and say, Sonny, when I was your age, you could send a postcard for a penny and a candy bar was 5 cents. We've all heard those people, right? And they're right? They have good things to teach us for sure. But the reality is, if during that 30 years, you were saving money to buy a house, and instead of saving your money in dollars, you saved it in gold, the house would have been cheaper. 646 ounces to 610 ounces. Now go back 10 years to 1990. It was only 293 ounces. So the question is, did the dollar go down in value? Did real estate go up or down in value? Or did gold go up and down in value? And we have to compare all these things as they're moving separately. But by doing so, we get a really good indication of the real and legitimate value of things by comparing them to other things. So now let's look at today. Today, the median house price most people would consider is really, really high. Oh my God, there's a bubble. Things are going to crash. It's too expensive. We've all heard it, right? $347,000. But gold is at over almost $1,800. Today, it'll take you 194 ounces of gold in that briefcase to buy the house. So priced in gold, in 21 years, basically a generation, 610 ounces 21 years ago, 194 ounces of gold today. Priced in gold, is real estate cheap or expensive? Folks, leave us a comment and tell us, is it cheap or expensive? What do you think? Ashley, thoughts, questions?
I think, a lot of this, when they keep telling us everything is expensive, the bubble, I mean, these are panic headlines. This is clickbait, I think. But so you can look at all this and looking at it historically, so you can see it's actually a good deal right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is why I think we've got a couple of years ahead of us where prices will keep increasing, priced in dollars.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it'll be interesting to see, and let's meet back here in 2 years, for example, and let's see priced in gold if real estate is cheaper or more expensive. I say in dollars it's going to be more expensive. But in gold, I don't know. It's a real question mark.
Yeah.
Okay. If you look at Bitcoin, housing has become a lot cheaper priced in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't go back far enough, but we can go back to 2010, and it took 773,000 Bitcoin to buy a house. By 2020, last year, it only took 12 Bitcoin to buy a house, and now it only takes 10. And most people are saying, oh my God, Bitcoin has crashed. It used to be 60,000. Now it's only 30,000 something, 34,000, 32,000. I don't know. Changes hourly. Okay. But, so priced in Bitcoin, is housing cheap or expensive? It's cheap. Totally cheap. Yeah. Do you want me to do another one, Ashley, or any?
Yeah. What about something that is something on the commodities market, something like an everyday rice or even a material, coffee, something like that, something that people use every day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Can you compare it to one of those?
You know what? I got one for you. It's not edible though.
Okay.
Like rice or coffee. Okay. So do not eat this, folks. But this is a good one because the whole world uses it every single day. And that is oil.
Oil.
So
sure.
let's look at oil. Oil is the most important commodity on earth. There is no more important commodity than oil. Folks, oil is the thing. No matter what those lefty tree hugger idiots say, okay, oil is the most important commodity in the world still and will be for quite a few years. Granted, there's alternatives. We're working on it, but they're slow to be adopted. Okay. Okay. So priced in oil, if in 1970 you wanted to buy the median price house for $22,600, oil was only $3 a barrel. $3. Oh my God. Wow. $3 a barrel. You would have needed a very large vehicle, or several large vehicles, trucks and tankers, of oil with 6,700 barrels. That's not gallons, that's barrels of oil to buy the median price house. 6,700 barrels of oil. By 1980, you only needed 2,000 barrels of oil. And most people thought real estate had tripled in price in that 10-year period because it went from 22,000 to 66,000. Okay. But look at oil. It went up by 11 times. So priced in oil, the house got cheaper.
A lot cheaper.
By 1990, housing prices had doubled to $122,000 rounding. Oil got cheaper by $10. So by 1990 now, you needed 5,400 barrels of oil to buy a house. Housing got a lot more expensive by 1990, priced in oil. By 2000, your house is up $50,000, basically $51,000. Oil's a little more expensive. It's $27 versus $23, so it's up a little bit. It'll take you 6,400 barrels of oil, rounding off. By 2010, housing prices had gone up another 50 grand, but oil is now triple, approximately $78 a barrel. So it only take you 2,900 barrels of oil to buy the house in 2010 And most people thought the house got a lot more expensive.
Right.
2020, house is now, well, we'll just go this year because, well, the oil fluctuates. Well, this is pandemic, so it's really
There's a rent
misleading.
in the works. So
There
yeah.
was a time during the pandemic when oil was free. They'd pay you to
Yeah.
take
Oh,
it,
yeah.
Okay. So, but right now, by the way, M6 means month 6. That means June. Okay.
Mhm.
These are June prices. 347, $75 a barrel, 4,600 barrels of oil to buy a house. So 50 years later, priced in oil, houses got cheaper.
Mhm.
Let's look at 21 years. 21 years, a generation, priced in oil, houses got cheaper. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. Yeah.
How many people are looking at it this way? Comment below, folks. We'd love to hear your comments on this. This is the Hartman Comparison Index.
And so how do you think this index can be used kind of on a larger scale? Can it be adopted by government agencies, releasing economic data, predictions, things like that? What is the major importance of this index?
It is incredibly important because it gives people a point of reference that they do not currently. Well, I don't want to say they don't currently have it because the data is out there and I just showed it to you, but they don't use it. They don't use that point of reference. So please use it. I mean, it just tells you a lot. The Hartman Comparison Index, and we're working on a book about the index that explains the index. We're upgrading the index constantly. One of the things we're doing now is we're back testing the index to see historically what happened, right? For example, when housing looked really expensive based on the index, what happened to housing prices? Did they go down? Or in real terms or in nominal terms? There are a lot of questions here that this raises. So we are working on doing amazing things with this index. So please, be sure you're subscribing to the Creating Wealth podcast. Be sure you've subscribed to the YouTube channel. And wherever you're watching this, whether it be Facebook or YouTube, give us a like if you like the index. And turn on your notifications on YouTube as well, so you'll get the latest up-to-date data. And we'll have some materials. We've got a white paper coming out on this that'll hopefully be done tomorrow or the next day, and it'll give you a good overview of the index.
Great. Yeah. So this is something that, as a investor or even a non-investor, you can use to get a better picture of how to value real estate. It can be used by your average Joe or somebody actually investing in properties. It's another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, and it's a good tool for sure. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay, what other questions or comments, Ashley? And
we got this really interesting one from 5 Star CA, California. I'm building a home and sitting on cash and equities to pay for construction. Will finish in 18 months. Should I get an expensive 30-year construction loan now at 4.75% or wait and hope for lower rates on a completed home?
Ooh, good question. So, did you? So, with your construction loan, that's also called like a takeout loan. Okay, where you can get a construction draw as you progress through the construction. It sounds like you didn't do that. It sounds like you're just paying cash for materials all along the way. By the way, be sure your insurance policy is good. Okay, because if you've got your own cash in that deal, you want to make sure you have insurance along the way for all the construction process, right? So just check your insurance. That's the one caution I want to give you for sure. So that construction loan has a higher interest rate at the end when you estimate completion in 18 months than what you'd pay now. It sounds like that's what you're saying. So my answer is, well, why can't you? I'm going to answer with a question. Why can't you just take the construction loan now, do your construction, do your takeouts? It's better than paying cash for that stuff, for sure. And then if the rates are better at the time you complete to get what's called the permanent loan, you convert the takeout loan into a permanent loan when the construction's complete. Then you can just not take that not take the permanent loan. Sorry, folks, my brain does not work when my ear does not work. When the whole side of your head is like plugged up, the brain does not work either as well. But you can either maybe, I don't know what your contract says, your loan docs, but you can either just not take the permanent loan they offer or take it and then immediately refinance it. Those would be the options I would explore. I hope that helps.
Mm-hmm. Yes. 5-star writes, yes, paying cash and insured.
Okay, good. So I don't want you paying cash for those construction materials, though. I'd like to get you away from that. I'd rather use I'd rather you see you use your cash to buy good rental properties in diverse markets. I don't know where the home is, but if you're building a home and it's like your dream home, it's probably not in a place where you want to invest, because I'm guessing that house is in an expensive area that won't make sense for investment. And you want to get good quality rental properties in cheap linear markets. You can find those all at jasonhartman.com in the properties section. And I don't want you paying cash for your construction process or your construction materials along the way. I ideally get the bank to finance that. It's much less risky and just a much better deal. The money's almost free. Even at 4%, the money's below the rate of real inflation. So you're getting paid to borrow the money. And you have an opportunity cost on not using that money to buy good rental properties.
Sure. Civil Disorder asks,
you gotta love these.
I love it. I really like that one. How long until realtors go extinct? And is it true the mortgage loans are under 2%? Are they going lower? Well,
predicting interest rates, I have found to be a fool's game. So I'm not going to predict interest rates, except, I can't imagine I would be wrong on this prediction, Ashley. Interest rates are going to ultimately be higher than they are today. I think that one's a pretty safe bet.
Safe prediction.
So that one's probably a safe bet. But what was the rest of the question?
How long until realtors go extinct?
Oh, yes. Well, I have a lot to say about that one. I don't think realtors are going to go extinct as quickly as other people think. Okay. By the way, I just went to our website, jasonhartman.com, and this is the properties page where you can find investment properties in good linear markets nationwide. Make sure you come here, check this out. And so now, the other disclaimer I want to make about this is you're not going to find many properties on here because they are selling so fast. You do need to make sure you fill out any web form on our site or at pandemicinvesting.com and get with one of our investment counselors, because they need to be like actively working with you to find good properties, and they can do that. But so you may not see much that's actually still for sale on the website because they're selling, lickety split, right? But, there'll be a little information about each market, a video that talks about it and, gives you an overview and all that good stuff. But then you click on Browse Jacksonville Properties, or St. Augustine Properties in this example. And so here is a property, okay? And what you'll see here is a summary page. There's a more detailed page if you sign in and you just create a free account. But look at the opportunity cost here. It goes to that last question, right? This property is it's like 2,100 square feet, 290,000. You need $87,000 to buy it, subject to qualifying, of course. And it is projected to produce $322 per month in positive cash flow, or $3,900. I'm rounding a little bit, $3,900 per year positive cash flow. The overall return on investment on this property is projected at 29% annually. Now, here's your assumptions: 6% annual appreciation rate, a vacancy rate of 8% or 1 month per year, and management fees for a property manager. And by the way, we can teach you how to self-manage your properties, but if you have a manager, of 7%. And that's your opportunity cost. So that person that is paying cash for the construction of their home along the way is missing these opportunities.
Mhm.
If you can borrow that money at 4% and you can make a return of 29%, the net difference is 25% positive return on investment to you every year. And let's assume that this projection doesn't happen. Let's say this projection turns out to be wrong and it's not as good as it was projected to be. That happens. Sometimes it's better, but let's say it's only half as good as you expect. So the 29% is now 14.5%. We'll call it 14. You're borrowing the money at 4%, I think you said. You're up 10%. So finance the construction. It's a much better deal, much better deal. Okay. So hope that helps. So Ashley, what was that other question? I'm sorry. This is why I have you to keep me on track here.
We were talking about the last one was realtors and interest rates.
Realtors going extinct.
Yes.
Well, rates are going to be higher, and realtors are not going to go totally extinct, but their business is obviously changing a lot. Let me tell you what could drive the nail in the coffin. I remember reading an article about this years ago that Uber was working on a deal with Zillow. Listen to what they were working on. This is a big, big deal. They were working on a deal to allow Uber drivers to have lockbox keys for houses. And one of the biggest things realtors do is they provide access to houses. They used to provide access to data. They no longer do that. And I remember many, many years ago when realtors were scared that the internet was going to take over the business. To some extent, it's only helped realtors. To some extent, it's hurt them too, but it's a two-edged sword. And so the thing that could really drive the nail in the coffin is if a ride-sharing service like Uber was able to do a deal with Zillow. Zillow has all the data, realtors have all the access to the properties. But if they could remove realtors from the access equation by giving Uber drivers lockbox keys, that would hurt realtors significantly. And it would very much allow people to just go list their property on Zillow or any other website themselves and call an Uber to say, hey, I want to get in and see this house.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be much for the realtor to do if that happened. Okay. And but the demise of realtors has been predicted for many, many years, and it just has not happened. And so, look, realtors, you've got to keep improving your value proposition. Everything in life is a competitive market. I mean, look, this is like the old idea of a marriage, right? People get married and then they figure, okay, I'm married now. I'm going to get fat and let myself go. And, who cares if I lose my job, and I'll just be a slacker, right? You got to keep working at it. Okay. If you want to stay married or if you want to stay in the real estate business, you got to keep making effort. This is life. Life is effort. It's energy. You got to keep putting energy to anything you want to sustain or maintain. So that's, realtors have to keep adapting and improving their value proposition. It's look at Charles Darwin, back to Darwin, right? He said that it is not the strong that survive. It is the most adaptable that survive. You got to be adaptable.
Sure. Yeah. From Matthew Nesbitt, I just watched your $1 million portfolio video. The projections were great. The one question I left with was, do you believe the portfolio being made of 2 houses versus 10 would make a difference?
When you say 1 million portfolio, you're talking about you watch my refi till you die example. That's what that is. Yeah. Well, 2 $500,000 houses are almost never as good as, and by the way, I really need to update that. Thank you for the reminder, because getting a $100,000 house anymore is almost impossible. So I should say 5 $200,000 houses. And in doing that, I would say that the two $500,000 houses will never make good sense as rental properties because the rent to value ratios will never be as good. So get yourself 5 $200,000 houses or 4 $250,000 houses to do that. And I see that Kay says Detroit, Michigan. I assume you're talking about $100,000 houses. Yes, you can do it there, but I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying good quality properties are going to be about $200,000 and up today. But I would not go as high as 500,000. I really wouldn't. I think that's too expensive, and you're not going to do as well.
Sure. Amina Goodwin, MD. I'm anxious for the link to attend your live event.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, we have a live event coming up. Ashley, thank you for bringing up Amina's question. So we will have a link for that probably momentarily, like maybe even tomorrow. I'm waiting for the page to be done by the web developer, and we're going to be selling tickets for our next event. And that will be September 10th, 11th, and 12th in Orlando, Florida. So be sure to join us for that. And hey, the theme parks are open again, folks. So you can also make it a little vacation and go to some of these Universal Studios or Disney or Epcot Center or whatever you want. It's in Orlando. Great spot. Fantastic airport. Lots of direct flights. Mark your calendar. September 10th, 11th, and 12th in Orlando, Florida. We are trying to arrange a property tour on Friday before the event on the 10th. So stay tuned for the details on that as well. And we will announce the link where you can buy tickets on the podcast, maybe even tomorrow or if not Wednesday.
Very nice. You're doing another live stream today, aren't you?
Yes. Thank you, Ashley, for the reminder on that. 2 live streams in one day. We're doing happy hour with Ken McElroy and George Gammon tonight. Well, tonight Eastern time, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. So join us for that. The 3 of us will be together and we'll be having a drink. Bring your favorite beverage. And
wreaking havoc.
What's that?
Wreaking havoc.
Yes, wreaking havoc on happy hour. Yes, tonight. So we will be doing that tonight, right here in the same place. But that'll also be on Ken's YouTube channel. George's YouTube channel is not hooked up yet, so I can't say for sure it'll be on George's channel, but it'll be on mine and Ken McElroy's channel. And we'll be talking about our new mastermind group, The Collective, tonight as well. So that should be a lot of fun. So join us for that. And I just wanted to show off my picture here with none other than Richard Branson, who went to space today. Did he go to space? Is it all done? Is he back? So there's Richard Branson and I on his beautiful private island in, and that's called Necker Island. I've been there twice now. And they're in with Tony Robbins and Jerry Seinfeld, Lisa Nichols, a lot of good stuff. The late Zig Ziglar, Steve Forbes, and Ringo Starr down there. But Richard Branson. So now I can say I really know someone who's been to space.
That's amazing. That's the future of real estate, space real estate.
That one's a ways away, I'll say.
Yeah, true.
Possibly. Ashley, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for smashing the like button and subscribing and to not only the YouTube channel, but the podcast, the Creating Wealth podcast, and for referring and sharing it with your friends, family, and coworkers. We really appreciate it. And I just want to say to everybody, happy investing. And thanks to Ashley, our first time doing a live stream together. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.